Which one team from each conference could be a dark horse candidate this year for their conference, and maybe candidates that aren't normally mentioned? So no Penn State types that are a dark horse every year. Is that a compliment to Penn State? Nathan, I'll let you answer that. Let's start in the SEC. I'm going to go Ole Miss then, since you say I can't use the regulars. Ole Miss, some of you may think, oh, they are regular. Everyone always mentions them. Do they though? I think a lot of people are going to mention Tennessee. A lot of folks will get caught up on A&M. I don't hear a lot of folks talking about Ole Miss. You should, though, for reasons we've mentioned several times. I don't need to go down the list again. They get Bama at home with a bye week before they play Bama. It's later in November. We talked about that game the other night, but also they hit on quarterback in the transfer portal. It's just one little point, but yet it's a point you really need to yell. Because when you do that, you've probably changed the outcome of multiple games on your upcoming schedule. And if that wasn't enough for you, they hit on pretty much every other position in the portal too. So Ole Miss, easily, if you tell me to take a non-usual dark horse in the SEC, is my team. In the Big Ten, now we're going to get a little crooked. You're going to have to listen to me closely. I'm going with Purdue. The Purdue Boilermakers, did you know they went 9-4 last year? I don't think many of you did. I'm looking around the studio, not a hand is raised. They went 9-4. Was that not like the quietest 9-4 you've ever heard? Now they're in the West, which is like a permanently wide open division. But think about this. We're looking at their schedule here. If you're in the West and I tell you you're going to avoid Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, and you're going to open with Penn State, that's about as fortuitous a bounce of the scheduling pen or ball or whatever you make a schedule with as you could possibly have. And so they've got that. They've improved every year under Braum since he's been there. They had a couple of big NFL departures. But the thing about it is, those guys didn't play in the bowl game against Tennessee, and they still found a way to beat Tennessee. So they're going to be a very competitive team this year. And like I just said with the schedule, anything could happen. Moving on, in the ACC, North Carolina State, which, if you follow the ACC closely, is not a dark horse to you. They're just an outright contender. But the question was nationally. And nationally, if it's not Clemson, people are going to go with either Pitt or they're just going to take a flyer on Miami. A lot of people aren't talking about North Carolina State. Of course, they should be. We should be as well. But Devin Leary and wide receiver depth will be two reasons why maybe from 50,000 feet you look at that team and you like that team. But let me fill you in on another little secret. This could be the defense most qualified to take over games in the entire Atlantic Coast Conference. North Carolina State, as you're looking at their schedule there, there'll be a couple of them this year. They win, and it's just a total, complete, like circa 1980s slugfest, and you're watching those zeros on the clock in the fourth quarter, and you're saying, wow, like that defense just flat out won this game. Like that's a 19-17 winner at some point this year, NC State. How about in the Pac-12, Oregon State, the Beavers, which I don't think is a team we've talked about in quite a while. They were a quiet 7-6 last year, and they didn't really lose any games by blowouts. A couple of two-possession losses, but they didn't really get blown out last year. It's a really good defensive group. They just wrapped up spring. Trent Bray, I want you to pay attention to that name. He's a first-year defensive coordinator out there. They like him. People around the program like him. It's not a name that's well-known nationally, but keep an eye there and keep an eye on their offensive line. If you're looking at position groups to pay attention to in the Pac-12, they've got a dependable 1 through 5. Behind that, you look at my hand, it's a little shaky. So if they were to be able to keep health along the offensive line, that's a team that could make some noise there. Of course, I mean, they've got to play a tough schedule, but just a team to watch. You wanted a dark horse. And lastly, in the Big 12, I'm going to go with Kansas State. Kansas State's probably going to be a little trendier pick as the season draws closer. But I will take a flyer on a young man that many a college football fan would dissuade you from taking a flyer on, and that's Adrian Martinez. If you added up Adrian Martinez and Sean Clifford, you would get a 100-year-old man. And yet one of them starting at quarterback for Kansas State and one of them starting at quarterback for Penn State. They are, at this point, legacy players in college football. Lifetime Achievement Awards for Sean Clifford and Adrian Martinez. I'm pretty sure one of them has a grandkid already. Adrian Martinez, he was at Nebraska, you remember. Well, now he's transferred here. Look, there are some people who will tell you, don't waste your time. But listen, to be honest, I've only had one person tell me this, but it's a person I trust, has suggested, he's actually a pretty good fit for what they want to do there. Okay, say no more. I'm going to run with that because I know I've got Deuce Vaughn at running back. And I know, much like I said with NC State in the ACC, I got a defense that's pretty salty here. All three levels, they like what they have. That's a defense that can win games. So let's just keep an eye on Kansas State. Dark horse, you wanted dark horses, so that's my dark horse there.